"I'll give you my salary if you translate this," mocked the Millionaire CEO at the poor cleaning lady, having no idea who she really was. Before we start, leave a comment telling us which city you're watching from. And at the end, don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story. "This has to be a joke," Logan Griffin muttered, storming into the Griffin Imports conference room like a hurricane, a crumpled envelope in his hand. The executives present glanced at each other in silence. "Does anyone here understand this?" He tossed the papers onto the table, scattering them like playing cards. "Basque. What kind of company sends documents in Basque these days?" Mariana, his personal assistant, swallowed hard and approached carefully. "Sir, I already called 4 translation agencies. No interpreter is available today, not even online." "Useless." Logan spun on his heels. "A company of our size, and no one, absolutely no one, can translate a single piece of paper?" He turned back to the room, picked up the papers again, and with a mocking tone said, "All right, everyone, I'll give my entire month's salary to whoever translates this right now. $150,000. Any takers?" The room erupted in nervous laughter. It was obvious that none of them even knew what Basque sounded like. Mariana forced a smile, hoping this would be over soon. Then a voice spoke up. From the back of the room, subtle, steady, and unexpected. "I can translate it." Silence fell like thunder. All eyes turned to the woman by the water cooler, holding a wet mop and a bucket of disinfectant. Rosie Monroe, the cleaning lady. Her light blue uniform was slightly wrinkled, her hair pulled back into a makeshift bun, her face lightly sweaty from going up and down the building. She looked straight at Logan with the calm of someone who knew exactly what she was doing. Logan frowned, unable to hide his surprise. "What?" "I said I can translate it," she repeated firmly. "These papers are in Basque. I understand them." More laughter. Someone muttered, "Oh, come on." Another whispered, "The cleaning lady's lost it." But Rosie didn't back down. She walked calmly to the table and pointed at the papers. "May I take a look?" Logan crossed his arms, still laughing in disbelief. "You expect me to believe that a cleaning lady knows Basque? I expect you to hand me the papers. That's all." Rosie replied, holding out her hand with dignity. He hesitated for a moment. The whole thing felt too ridiculous to be real. But something in Rosie's steady gaze unsettled him. With a mocking gesture, he handed her the papers. Rosie read for a few seconds, her eyes moving over the lines with ease. Then she looked up. "This is a notice of inheritance," she said calmly. "A woman named Lourdes Garmendia passed away a month ago. She was your great-aunt on your mother's side. She left you a property and a substantial sum in Bilbao. The document states you're the only living heir." Logan blinked. The room fell completely silent. This is a joke." He tried to laugh. "You're making it up." Rosie remained composed. "That's what it says. And there's one more thing. The deadline to confirm acceptance of the inheritance is today by 5 p.m. After that, the assets will be redistributed under local law." Mariana checked the time. It was 3:03 p.m. Logan was silent for a few seconds, then quickly pulled his phone from his pocket and dialed a number. "Someone get me the number for the Spanish consulate. Now." Mariana was already typing on her laptop while everyone waited. Logan got through, explained what he had received, read out the sender's name, the origin of the document, and the date. Rosie stood calmly by the table. "Yes," he said. "Official document. Basque language. Pause. Right. Yes, and the contents, is that correct?" The answer came from the other end of the line. Logan pulled the phone away from his ear, his expression as if he had just swallowed a cactus. "It's correct." The executives exchanged glances. "What now?" Mariana asked softly. "Now." Logan looked at Rosie with a different expression, less mockery, more urgency. "Now we have less than an hour to prepare the reply. Sign it and send it by priority mail." Rosie nodded. "I can translate the rest and prepare the final document. But I'll need a computer and silence." Logan nodded. "Mariana, take her to my office. Give her whatever she needs." And before she left, Logan called her again. "I'll pay you," Logan said, pulling out his checkbook. "Name your price." Rosie met his gaze firmly. "Just the amount you yourself offered," he frowned. "What I offered? Your salary for the month," she said flatly. $150,000. Logan froze. The entire room was watching. No one could hide their shock. "You remember that?" "I remember everything people say when I'm mopping the floor, and they think I'm not listening." He had said it as a challenge, thinking no one would actually follow through. "It was a joke," he muttered. "But I took it seriously, and I saved your inheritance," Rosie said. "If you want to contest it, go ahead, but I'm not asking for a penny more." Logan stared at her. For the first time there was something in his eyes that looked like respect, or maybe just wounded pride. He took a deep breath, signed the check, handed it to her. "All right, I'll pay." Rosie took the check, folded it, and slipped it into her pocket with a simple "thank you," and walked out, leaving the Millionaire CEO in total silence, along with a whole floor of employees left speechless. The next morning, Logan Griffin couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. A janitor had saved a multi-million-dollar inheritance in a matter of minutes. More than that, she had charged exactly what he had promised, without hesitation. At 9 a.m., he went down to the basement of Griffin Imports, where the cleaning supplies were stored. Rosie was organizing chemicals on shelves, wearing the same light blue uniform as the day before. "Rosie," he called, knocking on the storage room door. She turned around, not looking the least bit surprised. "Mr. Griffin, do you need something? I want to make you an offer." Logan stepped into the small room, noticing how everything was perfectly organized. "How about working as a freelance interpreter for the company? We deal with international clients all the time." Rosie stopped what she was doing and looked at him. "Freelance?" "Exactly. You keep your current job, but whenever we need translations, we call you in. You'd be paid per project." She crossed her arms, thinking. "And what would the condition be?" "Condition?" Logan frowned. "You tell me?" "No humiliation, and no patting me on the back," she said firmly. "If I accept, I want to be treated like a professional, not like a novelty or some kind of company mascot." Logan nodded. "Deal. Then I accept." 3 days later, Rosie was in the 10th floor meeting room, sitting next to two of the company's official translators. The client was a French import company, and the deal involved complex contracts. James, the senior translator, began the presentation by talking about top-quality products when the French client asked a specific question about certifications. "He's asking about ISO standards," James translated. Rosie cleared her throat gently. "Actually," she said politely, "he specifically asked about origin traceability and environmental compliance. He didn't mention ISO." James gave her an annoyed look. "I've spoken French for 15 years. "So have I," Rosie replied calmly. "And he said traçabilité d'origine et conformité environnementale." The French client, who understood a little English, nodded. "Exactly. Merci, madame." James swallowed hard. The other translator looked down, embarrassed. Logan, watching from the end of the table, hid a small smile. For the rest of the meeting, whenever the translators hesitated, it was Rosie who stepped in to clarify. She wasn't trying to show off, but she didn't let major mistakes slide either. When the meeting ended, James left without saying a word. The other translator approached Rosie. "Sorry about James. Where did you study?" "That doesn't matter," she said, putting away her notes. "What matters is that the client left satisfied." Logan waited for everyone to leave before approaching her. "That was impressive. Where did you learn French?" "I need to go pick up my son from school," she replied, dodging the question. "Your son?" Rosie hesitated for a moment. "Noah, he's 7. "Oh," Logan tried to keep it casual. "And his father?" "There is no father," she said bluntly. "There's just me." She grabbed her bag and headed for the door. "Rosie," she turned. "Thanks for your work today. Really, you saved the deal." "That's what you pay me for," she replied and walked out. Logan stayed alone in the room, more curious than ever. That afternoon, he did something he'd never done before. He asked Mariana to quietly look up an employee's home address. "For HR?" the assistant asked. "It's personal," he admitted. Mariana raised an eyebrow, but didn't question him. The next day, Logan found out Rosie lived in Pilsen, a working-class neighborhood on the south side of Chicago, a small house on a street that had clearly seen better days. During the week, he started watching her more closely. Rosie always arrived right at 6:30 a.m., worked efficiently, and left at exactly 3:30 p.m. She was never late, never missed a day, never complained. On Fridays, she always seemed more tense. "Is something wrong?" he asked, running into her in the hallway. "No," she replied as usual. But Logan noticed she was holding an envelope from the children's hospital. That's when the pieces started to come together. The following Monday, he called Rosie in for a private meeting. "Have a seat," he said, pointing to the chair across from his desk. "I'd rather stand." "Rosie, I know you have a child with special needs." She stiffened. "And that's your business because I want to understand. You're clearly overqualified to be a cleaning lady. You speak at least 3 languages, you know legal terms, you solve complex problems in minutes. Why are you here?" "Because I need money, every day. No exceptions." For Noah's treatment. Rosie looked at him for a long moment. "He's autistic. He needs occupational therapy, speech therapy, daily medications. That costs more than $3,000 a month. Cleaning work pays on time. Other jobs don't always." "And his father?" "He decided he didn't want a defective child," she said, bitterness in her voice. "He disappeared before Noah turned 1. Logan felt something tighten in his chest. Anger? Compassion? "Rosie, I can help." "I don't need help," she cut in. "I need work and dignity. This isn't charity, it's recognition. You're worth a lot more than what you're making." "You already paid me what you owed. We're even." Logan sighed. Every time he tried to get closer, she built even higher walls. "Did the check for $150,000 clear?" "It did. Thank you." "What did you do with the money?" Rosie hesitated. "I fixed up the house. Noah's room had a leak, and I was able to hire a private therapist for him. A specialist." "That's great." "It is. He's already talking more, smiling more." For the first time, Logan saw Rosie's face soften. She loved that boy more than anything. "Can I meet him sometime?" "Why? Just curious." "You're very curious, Mr. Griffin." "Logan? You can call me Logan." "I'd rather stick with Mr. Griffin." She headed toward the door. "Rosie?" "Yes?" "If you ever need anything for Noah, you can come to me. I won't need anything." And she left, leaving Logan alone with 1,000 unanswered questions. Who was this woman? Why would someone so smart and capable be cleaning floors? And why did she pull further away every time he tried to help? One thing he knew, Rosie Monroe was a mystery he was determined to solve. Logan Griffin wasn't someone who gave up easily. For 2 weeks, he tried different ways to learn more about Rosie Monroe, but she was like a well-guarded fortress. The first time, he showed up in the supply room with 2 coffees. "Brought one for you," he said, holding out the cup. "I don't drink company coffee," she said without looking up from the supply list. "It's not from the company, it's from Starbucks." "Still no." "Why not?" "Because I don't want to owe anyone favors." Logan stood there, holding both coffees like a fool, while she kept working as if he weren't even there. The second time, a week later, he tried bringing up work. "Rosie, I'm thinking of expanding the translation department. Would you be interested in—" "No." "You don't even know what I was going to say." "Whatever it is, the answer's no." "But you don't even know the salary." "I don't need to know. It could be double what you make now." "Mr. Griffin," she turned to him, "I already told you I don't need charity. It's not charity, it's a legitimate job opportunity. To me, it's the same thing." Logan walked away feeling like he'd been arguing with a brick wall. But he didn't give up. If Rosie didn't want to talk about herself, he'd do some digging. The next Tuesday, Logan asked Mariana to run a deeper search. Look up everything on Rosie Monroe. Work history, education, past addresses, everything. "Sir, isn't that kind of invasive?" "It's professional curiosity," he lied. Mariana came back on Thursday with a surprisingly thick folder. "I found a few interesting things," she said, placing the papers on his desk. Rosie Monroe graduated in linguistics from Northwestern University, magna cum laude. Logan raised his eyebrows. "Northwestern? That's one of the top schools in the country. She has a master's in translation and interpretation. And look at this." Mariana pointed to another page. "She worked at the American consulate in Barcelona for 3 years. "Consulate?" Logan picked up the page. "As an official translator, diplomatic interpreter, Category A. That means she had access to confidential documents and took part in international negotiations." Logan stayed silent, processing the information. "And after that?" "That's where it gets strange. There's a 2-year gap in her resume, no registered job. Then 5 years ago, she turns up working as a cleaning lady at Griffin Imports. 2 years without a job? Exactly. It matches the birth of her child." Logan closed the folder, thoughtful. A diplomatic interpreter cleaning floors? Something was very wrong with this story. The next day, he decided to try a different approach. "Rosie," he called when he saw her in the hallway. "I need a favor. She stopped, wary. What kind of favor? I have a video conference with clients from Spain next week. They'll be speaking Catalan. Do you understand Catalan? I do. Would you join as an interpreter? Why not call official translators? Because after what happened with the French, I prefer someone competent. Rosie studied him for a moment. What's the pay? $500 for the meeting. 1,000. Deal. During the video conference, Logan was impressed. Rosie not only translated perfectly, but also caught cultural nuances and explained contexts the other interpreters always missed. When the meeting ended, he tried to make the most of the moment. You're amazing at this. Where'd you learn Catalan? In Barcelona. For work. What kind of work? The kind I don't discuss. There she was again, closing all the doors. Rosie, were you ever a teacher? Why do you ask? The way you explain things, it feels like teaching. I've been many things. Like what? Things. Logan took a deep breath, trying to keep his frustration in check. You know, talking to you is like pulling teeth from a chicken. I didn't know chickens had teeth, she replied, a spark of humor in her eyes. She made a joke. Logan clapped theatrically. Mark the calendar, everyone. Rosie Monroe cracked a joke. Don't overdo it. I'm celebrating a historic milestone. For the first time, he saw a faint smile on her face. You're a bit dramatic, aren't you? A bit? Logan pretended to be offended. I'm completely dramatic. It's my trademark. That must be why you yell so much in meetings. I don't yell. I project my voice with enthusiasm. I see. And when you throw papers on the table, is that organizing with enthusiasm? Logan laughed, surprised at how naturally the conversation was flowing. You watch me a lot for someone who pretends to ignore me. I clean the conference room. It's hard not to notice. And what else do you notice? That you drink a lot of coffee, and that your desk is always messy. Is that a critique? A professional observation. Cleaning professional or observation professional? Both. For the first time, Logan felt he was having a real conversation with her. No walls, no curt answers. Rosie, can I ask you something? You can ask. I can't promise I'll answer. Why would someone with your qualifications work as a cleaning lady? Her smile vanished instantly. Because sometimes life doesn't give us the options we'd like. But you have options now. You could work for any international company, any university. Mr. Griffin, she cut him off, her tone turning formal again. I need to pick up Noah from school. And there she was again, putting the walls back up. But this time, Logan had seen something different. For a few minutes, she had let her guard down. She had been just Rosie, smart, funny, observant. And he was starting to realize he was interested in her in a way that had nothing to do with professional curiosity. The problem was she seemed determined to keep her distance. For now. Logan Griffin spent 3 days planning how to invite Rosie out. It couldn't feel too personal or too professional. It had to be neutral, safe. On Friday, he found her organizing cleaning supplies in the storeroom. Rosie, I have a proposal. She didn't look up from the disinfectant bottles. If it's about extra work, I already said no. It's not about work. It's a thank you. A thank you for what? For this week's translations. You saved 2 important contracts. It's my job. Exactly. And I'd like to thank you professionally. Dinner. Nothing more. Rosie stopped what she was doing and looked at him. Dinner where? Le Bernardin. Do you know it? I know it's expensive. It's a respectable restaurant for a respectable professional occasion. She crossed her arms, thoughtful. And what exactly is the nature of this professional occasion? Recognition for services rendered. Networking. A civilized conversation between colleagues. Colleagues, professionals working at the same company. Rosie studied him for a long moment. All right, I'll go. Logan nearly stumbled in surprise. Seriously? But with a few conditions. What are they? I'm not dressing up to impress anyone. I'll wear something simple, and if I feel uncomfortable at any point, I'm leaving. Deal. And it's not a date. Of course not. It's a professional thank you. Exactly. Great. What time? 8 o'clock. Can I pick you up? Let's just meet there. On Saturday at exactly 8, Logan was at Le Bernardin, wearing his best suit. The restaurant was elegant, with soft lighting and well-spaced tables, the kind of place where executives closed deals and politicians made arrangements. Rosie arrived 15 minutes later. Logan almost didn't recognize her. She wore a simple black blouse, dark jeans, and flat shoes. No heavy makeup, no flashy jewelry, but something about her was different. Her posture was straighter, her movements more confident. "Sorry I'm late," she said as she walked over. "Took me a while to find parking." "No problem. You look," he hesitated, "very nice." "Thank you." The maitre approached with a professional smile that briefly flickered when he saw Rosie. "Good evening. Reservation under." "Griffin," Logan replied. "Ah, yes, Mr. Griffin. Right this way, please." He led them to a table in the center of the restaurant. Logan noticed a few curious glances from other diners. Rosie seemed cheerfully unaffected. "The menu," the waiter said, placing them on the table with a smile directed only at Logan. "Thank you," Rosie said. The waiter ignored her completely. "Would you like to start with something to drink?" "Red wine," said Logan. "Do you have a preference?" he asked Rosie. "Water's fine for me." The waiter only wrote down the wine. "And for the lady?" "I said water," Rosie repeated calmly. "Oh, yes. Water." He jotted it down reluctantly. Logan frowned but said nothing. During dinner, the conversation flowed better than he had expected. Rosie talked about books, travel, languages. She was smart, well-informed, and had thoughtful opinions on everything. "You've read Borges in the original?" Logan asked. "Of course, it's completely different in Spanish. The translation never captures the rhythm." "And Garcia Marquez?" "Better in Spanish too, though some English translations are decent." Logan was impressed. Rosie wasn't just multilingual, she was literary. That's when the mood shifted. An elegant woman at the next table stood to go to the restroom and accidentally bumped Rosie's chair. "Oops, sorry," she said with a fake smile. "What an interesting blouse. So simple." "Thank you." Rosie replied politely. "You're not a model, are you? Or an actress?" "No." "Oh." The woman glanced at Logan with a knowing look. "I see." She walked away, but Logan overheard her whisper to her companion. "Clearly an escort. Look at how she's dressed, and the way she looks at him. Too obvious." Logan felt his blood boil. "Excuse me," he said, getting up and walking to the woman's table. "Yes?" she said with a smile, thinking he was flirting. "Do you have something to say about my guest?" Her smile faded. I don't know what you mean." "Are you suggesting she's a sex worker?" "I never said that." "You didn't have to. Your tone made it perfectly clear." The woman turned red. "Look, I don't know who you think you are. I'm Logan Griffin, CEO of Griffin Imports. And that woman over there is one of the most capable professionals I've ever met. She speaks 6 languages, has 2 college degrees, and saved my company $500,000 this month alone." I didn't. "You should worry less about other people's clothes and more about your own manners." Logan returned to the table. Rosie watched him with an unreadable expression. "You didn't have to do that," she said. "Yes, I did. I'm used to that kind of thing." "Well, I'm not, and I won't let it slide." Rosie studied him for a moment. "Why not?" "Because it's wrong. Because you don't deserve to be treated that way. Because—" He stopped, realizing he was about to say something that would change everything. "Because you matter." Silence fell between them. Rosie looked away. "I think we should go?" "Of course." Logan paid the bill quickly and they left together. The night was cold, and Rosie pulled her blouse tighter around her. "Thank you for dinner," she said, "and for standing up for me." "No need to thank me." "Yes, I do. It's been a long time since anyone's done that for me." They stood on the sidewalk under the yellow glow of a street lamp. Rosie looked different there. More vulnerable, more real. "Rosie?" "Yes?" Logan didn't think, didn't plan. He just leaned in and kissed her. For a second, she didn't move. Then she pulled back and slapped him hard. The sound echoed down the empty street. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" she yelled. I'm sorry. You said you were being professional, that it was just a thank you. It was a reflex. I didn't." "A reflex?" Rosie let out a bitter laugh. "Of course, the rich CEO kissing the poor cleaning lady. What a lovely soap opera." "It's not like that, Rosie. It's exactly like that." She was already walking away. "Thanks for proving all men are the same." "Rosie, wait!" But she was already getting into her car, leaving Logan standing alone on the sidewalk, his face burning and his heart racing. He had ruined everything, completely. On Monday, Rosie Monroe arrived at Griffin Imports at 6:30 a.m. sharp, as usual. But something had changed. She greeted the security guard with a polite nod, grabbed her cleaning supplies, and started working without looking at anyone. Especially not at Logan Griffin. At 9:15, when Logan went down to the basement looking for her, he found only an empty storage room and a note taped to the door. Basement cleaning done. Next stop, 12th floor. He ran up the stairs, ignoring the elevator. On the 12th floor, he asked 3 different employees. No one had seen Rosie. At 10:30, Logan found her cleaning the windows on the 20th floor. She saw him approaching in the reflection of the glass, but kept working like he wasn't there. "Rosie, can I talk to you?" She dipped the cloth into soapy water and kept scrubbing. "Rosie, please, about last night." "There's nothing to talk about," she said, still not turning around. "There is. I acted like a fool. I agree, and I want to apologize." "Apology accepted. Can we move on now?" Logan sighed. She was being polite, professional, and completely cold. "Can we go back to how things were?" "This is how things were, Mr. Griffin." "Mr. Griffin." Not Logan. The wall was back up. "Rosie, if you'll excuse me, I have work to do." She picked up the bucket and walked off, leaving Logan talking to himself. Meanwhile, on the 35th floor, a meeting was taking place in the boardroom. James Morrison, CFO, Richard Hayes, COO, and Sandra Walsh, head of HR, sat around the mahogany table. "We've got a problem," said James, adjusting his glasses. "That cleaning lady is getting too much attention." "Rosie Monroe?" asked Sandra. "Exactly. She's showing up in important meetings, translating for clients, getting paid nearly as much as our senior translators." Richard nodded. "And Logan is clearly interested in her. Personally interested. That's a risk to the company," James went on. "A cleaning lady with that kind of access, she knows our contracts, our clients, our operations. If she decided to sell information or blackmail someone, or if things go south with Logan and she sues for harassment," Sandra added. "Exactly. We need to protect ourselves." "What do you suggest?" Richard asked. James leaned forward. "Termination. Quietly. No fuss. We come up with some excuse. Budget cuts, cleaning department, restructuring, anything." "And Logan?" "Logan doesn't need to know it was our decision. It can look like just another administrative change." Sandra frowned. "That could backfire. She has active translation contracts. Then we wait until she finishes those and let her go after. Simple." Richard tapped the table. "Perfect. Sandra, handle the paperwork. Quiet, clean, no drama." "When?" "End of the week, Friday afternoon. That gives her the weekend to absorb the news and gives Logan the weekend to cool down." While the executives planned her dismissal, Rosie was on the 15th floor, cleaning the same meeting room where she'd translated for the French clients weeks earlier. She worked methodically, trying not to think about Logan's kiss, the disastrous dinner, or the mess of emotions she was trying to suppress. She had liked the kiss. That was the worst part. For a second, she had forgotten who she was, where she came from, the gap between them. For a second, she had allowed herself to dream. And that was dangerous. But Rosie had learned long ago that dreams were luxuries she couldn't afford. She had responsibilities. Noah depended on her. Her financial stability depended on keeping both feet on the ground and her head clear. Logan Griffin was a distraction she couldn't let herself have. On Thursday, Sandra Walsh went down to the basement with a folder in hand. She found Rosie organizing cleaning supplies. "Rosie, I need a word." "Of course, Miss Walsh. Is there a problem with my work?" No. Your work is excellent. It's about restructuring." Rosie stopped what she was doing. "Restructuring? The company is going through some financial adjustments. Nothing serious, but we do need to make a few cuts." "I see. Unfortunately, that includes the cleaning department. We're outsourcing the service." Rosie stayed quiet for a moment. "When?" "Friday will be your last day." "And the translation contracts?" "They're also under review." Rosie nodded slowly. She wasn't stupid. She knew exactly what was happening. "I understand. Thank you for letting me know in advance." "Of course. And Rosie? This has nothing to do with your performance. You're an excellent employee." "Of course, it doesn't," Rosie said with a faint, bitter smile. On Friday morning, Logan found out by accident. Mariana was processing termination papers when he walked into her office. "What's this?" he asked, seeing Rosie's name on the form. "Oh, termination. Cleaning department restructuring." "What restructuring? No one consulted me about this." "It was the board's decision, sir." Logan felt his blood boil. "Which board?" "Mr. Morrison, Mr. Hayes, and Ms. Walsh." Logan stormed off toward the conference room. He found the 3 of them going over financial reports. Will someone explain to me why Rosie Monroe is being fired without my approval? The three exchanged looks. Logan, James began, this was an administrative decision. Nothing administrative? Since when do you make decisions about specific employees without consulting me? It's about efficiency, Richard said. Outsourcing cleaning is cheaper. That's a lie. You want her gone because you think she has too much influence over me. Sandra shifted uncomfortably in her chair. Logan, you need to admit the situation is irregular. Irregular how? A cleaning lady being paid for translations as much as our certified professionals. Because she's better than our certified professionals. And your personal relationship with her, James added. What personal relationship? The dinner last Saturday, the private conversations, the obvious interest. Logan glared at the three of them with contempt. You're firing a competent employee over gossip? We're protecting the company, Richard said. You're protecting your own egos. You can't stand that a cleaning lady is smarter than you. Logan, the termination is canceled. Too late, Sandra said, checking her watch. She's already been told, and she accepted. Logan ran out of the room. He found Rosie in the parking lot, carrying a box of personal belongings. She was wearing casual clothes, jeans and a light blue blouse, and looked oddly relieved. Rosie, wait, she turned around. Hi, Logan. I heard about the termination. I didn't authorize it. I'll reverse. There's no need. What do you mean, no need? I was planning to leave anyway. Logan was confused. Why? Because I don't want to work in a place where I'm seen as a threat. You're not a threat. Yes, I am. To their egos, to your reputation, to the company's status quo. That doesn't matter. It matters to me. Rosie put the box into the trunk of her car, a 2010 Honda Civic with a few scratches and a broken antenna. Rosie, let me help. I can find you another job. I can... Logan, stop. I can call contacts at other companies. Logan, he stopped. I don't want your pity. I just want my dignity. It's not pity. It's what? Guilt? Obligation? Unresolved romantic interest? Logan stayed silent. I don't need to be rescued, she continued. I've been taking care of myself for years. I don't need saving. I don't need a knight in shining armor. I know you don't. You see me as a project, someone who needs fixing, elevating, rescuing. That's not true. Yes, it is. And I'm not your project, Logan. Rosie got into her car. Take care, she said, and drove out of the parking lot. Logan stood there, watching her disappear into Chicago traffic. Then, without thinking, he got into his own car and followed her. 20 minutes later, he was parked in front of a small house in Pilsen. The paint was peeling, the yard needed care, and there was a rusty children's bike in the front. Through the window, he saw Rosie hugging a small boy. Noah. She was smiling, truly smiling, for the first time since he had met her. And Logan realized that despite all the problems, the difficulties, and the injustice, Rosie was happy. She had built a life, a home, a family, and maybe she didn't need him after all. Maybe he was the one who needed her. For an entire week, Logan Griffin couldn't get Rosie out of his mind. He walked through the office distracted, signed contracts without reading, and interrupted meetings to stare out the window. The following Thursday, he couldn't take it anymore. He drove to Rosie's house. When he knocked on the door, Noah opened it, a thin 7-year-old boy with big, curious eyes. Hi, the boy said, not shy at all. Hi, you must be Noah. I'm Logan. I work with your mom. Mom, Noah yelled, still staring at Logan. There's a man here. Rosie appeared, drying her hands with a dish towel. When she saw Logan, her face instantly hardened. What are you doing here? We need to talk. We don't have anything to talk about. Yes, we do. 5 minutes. Noah looked back and forth between them, fascinated by the tension. Mom, can he come in? He seems nice. Noah, go play in your room. But Mom. The boy obeyed, but Logan noticed how carefully he walked, as if every step took extra concentration. 5 minutes, Rosie said, without inviting him in. I want to offer you a job. We've already talked about that. Not like this. Official translator for Griffin Imports. Full-time salary, benefits, health insurance. Logan, $60,000 a year to start, with room for raises based on performance. Rosie crossed her arms. And Noah, who's going to take care of him while I work? We can figure out a flexible schedule, and I can help with the cost of his special school therapy. Stop right there. Rosie, be reasonable. I don't need charity. It's not charity. It's an investment. You're the best I've seen. Any company would pay double to have you. Then maybe I should go find one of those companies. Logan paused. Because I want it to be mine. Why? Because I trust you, because you make a difference. Because... He stopped, realizing he was about to say something that would change everything again. Logan, you don't get it. I can't accept favors from you. Why not? Because it creates expectations. It creates debt. It creates complications. What kind of complications? Rosie sighed. The kind that ends up hurting everyone. From inside the house came the sound of something falling. Mom, Noah shouted. Rosie ran inside. Logan followed and saw the boy on the living room floor, trying to pick up the pieces of a broken glass. I couldn't hold it, Noah said, frustrated. My hands didn't want to listen. That's okay, sweetheart, Rosie said, kneeling beside him. It happens. But I was being careful. I know. It wasn't your fault. Logan watched the scene, noticing how patient and kind Rosie was, and how completely Noah trusted her. Can I help? Logan offered. No need, Rosie said, sweeping up the glass. Does he have coordination issues? Logan asked gently. Among other things. Mom, can I tell him about my therapies? Rosie hesitated. If you want to. Noah turned to Logan, excited. I do occupational therapy 3 times a week and speech therapy twice, and I take medicine that helps me concentrate better. That's great, Logan said, genuinely interested. And my mom says when I grow up, I'll be able to do anything I want. She's absolutely right. Rosie finished cleaning up and stood. Noah, it's time for dinner. Can Logan have dinner with us? Logan has to leave. Actually, Logan said, I'd love to stay if it's okay. It's not. Mom, please, we never have visitors. Rosie looked at her son, then at Logan and sighed. Only if he helps cook. Dinner turned out to be a surprise for Logan. Rosie was a great cook, Noah was talkative and funny, and the house, though modest, was warm and full of love. Rosie, he said once Noah went to brush his teeth, take the offer. Logan, not for me, for him. Especially for him. Why? He deserves every opportunity in the world. And he'll have them. However, I can help make that happen. But I can help too. And what if you get tired of helping? What if someone else takes your attention? What if the company has problems? What happens to Noah then? Logan didn't have an answer. I would never do that. You might not want to, but things change, Logan. People change. The only ones I can count on to take care of Noah are me and him. The next week, Logan tried a different approach. He found Rosie in the parking lot of a grocery store in Pilsen. What a coincidence, he said. That wasn't a coincidence. You followed me. Maybe. Logan, this is getting weird. Take the job and I'll stop following you. Rosie laughed despite herself. Are you blackmailing me? If it works, yes. And if I say no, I'll keep showing up in random places until you say yes. That's harassment. It's romantic persistence. Romantic? Logan realized what he just said. I mean, professional persistence. Rosie studied him for a long moment. 60,000 a year? To start. Flexible hours? Absolutely. And you stop showing up in my personal life? I promise I'll try. All right, I'll take it. Logan nearly jumped with excitement. Really? But on one condition. If anyone at the company makes comments about favoritism or anything like that, I'm out immediately. No one's going to say anything. They will. And you know it. She was right. During Rosie's first week as the official translator, the comments started right away. Look who turned into an executive. James Morrison whispered to Richard Hayes in the elevator. The cleaning lady turned Cinderella, a junior translator laughed. Bet she's got other talents besides translating, another added. But the comments stopped abruptly on Friday when a Japanese client arrived with an extremely complex contract. The company's official translators struggled for 2 hours and couldn't make sense of the legal nuances. Rosie solved everything in 20 minutes. How did you know this clause referred to the 1987 import legislation? James asked, clearly embarrassed. Because I studied international commercial law, she answered calmly. Where? In life. From that day on, no one questioned Rosie's place at the company again. 3 weeks later, Logan was in an important meeting with investors when his phone rang. It was a number he didn't recognize. Excuse me, he said. I need to take this. Logan? Rosie's voice was tense and frightened. Rosie? What's wrong? It's Noah. He fainted at school. I'm heading to the hospital, but I don't have a car today. Mine's in the shop and... Where are you? At school. Lincoln Elementary. Don't move, I'm on my way. Logan stood up from the meeting table. Gentlemen, we need to reschedule this meeting. Logan, we're about to close a $2 million deal. The meeting is postponed. And he ran out, leaving 5 stunned investors behind. 15 minutes later, he was at the school, carrying an unconscious Noah to his car while Rosie cried silently in the passenger seat. For the first time, Logan realized some things were far more important than money, and one of them was passed out in his arms. At Children's Memorial Hospital, things were quiet. Logan and Rosie sat in uncomfortable waiting room chairs, sipping watery machine coffee while they waited for news about Noah. The doctors said he's stable, Rosie whispered for the 10th time, more to herself than to Logan. They did. He's going to be okay. But the blood tests, what if it's something serious? What if the meds aren't working anymore? What if, Rosie, Logan placed his hand on her arm, breathe. She looked at him with eyes red from crying. Sorry I called you. I didn't know what else to do. Don't be sorry. I'm here because I want to be. You left an important meeting. The meeting doesn't matter. Of course it does. It was $2 million, and Noah is worth far more than that. Rosie stared at him for a long moment. Why are you doing this? Doing what? Taking care of us. Helping. You barely know us. Logan hesitated. I know enough. No, you don't. Rosie leaned back in her chair. You don't know anything about me. About my past. About why a diplomatic translator was cleaning floors at your company. Then tell me. You won't like what you hear. Let me be the judge of that. Rosie went quiet for a few minutes, staring at the floor. I used to work at Meridian Global, an international consulting firm. Not exactly diplomacy, but close to it. Logan knew Meridian, one of the biggest consulting firms in the country. What was your role? Senior translator and interpreter for international negotiations. I helped facilitate deals between American and foreign companies. Billion-dollar contracts. Sounds important. It was. I traveled the world, stayed in luxury hotels, attended dinners with ministers and CEOs. I thought I'd made it. What happened? Rosie took a deep breath. In 2018, I found out that several contracts I had translated were fraudulent. Meridian was helping launder money through shell companies and offshore accounts. Logan leaned forward. You reported it? I tried. First internally. I went to my supervisor, then the director, then the VP. They all told me to stay in my lane. And you kept pushing? I gathered evidence, documents, recordings, emails. I had enough to bring down half the board. What did they do to you? They fired me for professional incompetence, spread rumors that I made up the accusations out of revenge, blacklisted my references. Logan felt anger rising in his chest. That's illegal. Yes, but they had better lawyers than I did. Did you sue? I tried. I spent all my savings on lawyers, but they had connections everywhere. Judges, prosecutors, journalists. My case was dismissed for lack of evidence. What evidence? You said you had proof. It had been lost or ruled inadmissible due to improper handling. Logan clenched his fists. Those bastards. And then came the worst part, Rosie continued. They started threatening me. Anonymous phone calls, strange cars on my street, emails telling me to stay quiet if I knew what was good for me. Rosie, that's when I found out I was pregnant. Logan was silent. Noah's father was a colleague at Meridian. When he found out about the threats, he said he didn't want to get involved with a problematic woman. He disappeared the next day. Coward. So I moved to Chicago, used the little money I had to start over. Noah was born with autism, and I needed money fast and steady. Cleaning jobs pay on the spot, and don't ask about your work history. Logan was trying to process it all. You were punished for trying to do the right thing. I was, and I learned my lesson. Keep my head down, work hard, stay out of trouble. That's why you didn't want to take the job at Griffin. Exactly. Important jobs attract attention. Attention brings investigations. Investigations can bring the past back. But you took it anyway. Because Noah needs his medication. And because, she hesitated. Because you convinced me that maybe it would be different this time. At that moment, a doctor walked up. Monroe family? That's me, Rosie said, jumping up. Noah's fine. It was an adverse reaction to a combination of medications. We'll adjust the dosage and he can go home tomorrow. Rosie nearly collapsed with relief. Logan caught her. Can I see him? She asked. Of course. He's awake and asking for his mom. Rosie turned to Logan. Want to come with me? If you'd like me to. I do. They walked into the room where Noah was sitting up in bed playing on a tablet. Mom, Logan, he shouted. Look, the doctors gave me this tablet to play while I wait. How are you feeling, champ? Logan asked. Good. The doctor said it was just a little mix-up with the medicine. Nothing serious. Rosie kissed her son's forehead. You gave me quite a scare. Sorry, Mom. Logan watched mother and son hug, feeling something he had never felt before. Love. Not just for Rosie, but for Noah, too. They were a family, and he wanted to be part of it. The next morning, Logan drove Rosie and Noah home. When they arrived, Rosie was checking her emails on her phone when her face went pale. What is it? Logan asked. Someone leaked information about my past. What do you mean? Rosie showed him her phone. On the screen was an online article with the headline, Meridian Global's fraudulent translator now works with CEO Logan Griffin. How did they find out where I work? She murmured. Logan quickly skimmed the article. It contained intimate details about the Meridian case, the accusations against Rosie and her dismissal. Someone at Griffin leaked this, he said angrily. Logan, I'll have to leave the company. No, you won't. Look at the scandal this is going to cause. Your reputation. To hell with my reputation. Logan, Rosie, listen. This time it'll be different. This time you won't face it alone. She looked at him, tears welling in her eyes. You don't understand. They'll destroy you too. Let them try. Logan's phone started ringing. It was Mariana. Logan, you need to check social media. The company's being flooded with questions about Rosie Monroe. Logan hung up. The war had just begun. On Monday morning, Griffin Imports looked like a battlefield. Reporters crowded the building's entrance, TV cameras lined the sidewalk, and the company phones never stopped ringing. Logan arrived at the office at 7 a.m. and found Mariana rushing around with a stack of papers. Mr. Griffin, thank God you're here. We have 15 interview requests, the legal department has called 3 times, and the board wants an emergency meeting at 9. And Rosie? She didn't come in today. Said she was at the doctor with Noah. Logan knew it wasn't true. Rosie was hiding, and he couldn't blame her. At 8:30, his phone rang. An unknown number. Logan Griffin? Yes. This is Jessica Park from Channel 7 News. I'd like to ask you a few questions about your employee Rosie Monroe. No comment. Mr. Griffin, we have information that Ms. Monroe was dismissed from Meridian Global for professional misconduct. Were you aware of this when you hired her? No comment. There are rumors you have a personal relationship with her. Did that influence your decision to hire her? Logan hung up the phone, furious. At exactly 9 a.m., he was in the 35th floor conference room, facing the board of directors. 5 men in dark suits stared at him with serious expressions. Logan, Richard Hayes began, we need to talk about Ms. Monroe. What about her? Don't play dumb, said James Morrison. The company's being torn apart in the media because of her. Because of lies. Lies. Sandra Walsh pushed a tablet toward him. Take a look. Logan saw a photo of himself on the screen next to one of Rosie. The headline read, Billionaire CEO defends suspicious employee. That's sensationalism. It's a public relations disaster, Richard replied. Our clients are concerned. 3 contracts have already been suspended pending investigation. Suspended? Why? Because clients no longer trust the integrity of our company, James explained. If we hire people with questionable backgrounds. What questionable background? Logan slammed his hand on the table. Rosie was a victim of corruption, not the one behind it. According to her, said Sandra, but Meridian Global tells a different story. Of course they do. They're covering their own tracks. Logan, be practical, Richard said. In business, perception matters more than truth, and the current perception is damaging. The perception is wrong. Even so, we need to act. Fire Monroe and issue a public statement distancing the company from her past. No, Logan. I said no. Rosie Monroe is the most competent professional we've ever had here. She saved contracts, impressed clients, and raised our standards. But the scandal. The scandal has nothing to do with her work here, and even if it did, I won't abandon an employee just to save face. James sighed. Logan, you're thinking with your heart, not your head. I'm thinking with principles. Principles don't pay salaries or keep the company running. Then maybe we're running the company the wrong way. Silence fell over the room. Logan, Richard said calmly, as your partner and friend, I'm asking you to reconsider. Fire Monroe. Publicly. Show the company has integrity. Showing integrity would be doing the opposite. The company is losing money, it'll bounce back. Shareholders are nervous, they'll calm down. Logan, be rational. I am being rational. Logan stood. I'm refusing to destroy an innocent person's life just to protect our corporate image. So you're officially refusing to fire Rosie Monroe? Sandra asked. Officially. Publicly. Absolutely. Even knowing the consequences? She's the best professional we've ever had. Anyone who doesn't like it is free to leave. The 5 board members looked at each other. Logan, James said slowly, you're forcing our hand. What do you mean? We can't allow emotional decisions to jeopardize the company. Emotional decisions? It's clear your judgment is compromised where Monroe is concerned. My judgment is perfectly sound. It's not, Richard said, and that's why, as representatives of the majority shareholders, we're temporarily suspending you from your duties as CEO. Logan felt like he'd been punched in the gut. You can't do that. We can. And we are. Clause 15B in the partnership agreement. In cases of decisions that significantly risk the company, the board can intervene. This is ridiculous. It's necessary, Sandra said. You're being placed on leave for 2 weeks while we handle this situation. And Rosie? She'll be terminated this afternoon. If you lay a hand on her. Logan, you have no authority to make threats, James reminded him. You're suspended. Logan looked around at the 5 faces at the table, people he had worked with for years, built the company with, closed deals with. You're going to regret this. Maybe, said Richard, but it's what we have to do. Logan stormed out, slamming the door. 2 hours later, he was at Rosie's house in Pilsen. She opened the door, eyes red from crying. Logan, what are you doing here? I thought you were at work. They suspended me. What? The board suspended me because I refused to fire you. Rosie leaned against the doorframe. Oh, Logan. They're going to try to fire you this afternoon, but we can fight it. We have lawyers, we have… Stop. Rosie, we can't let them win. Logan, stop. Something in her voice made him pause. I've already made my decision, she said quietly. What decision? I'm leaving Chicago. What? Noah and I are moving, maybe to Portland or Denver, somewhere we can start fresh. Rosie, don't do this. This is the only way. As long as I'm here, you'll keep getting hurt. Your company, your career, your life. I don't care about that. But I do. Tears started to run down her face. I can't let you lose everything because of me. You didn't do anything wrong. It doesn't matter. The result's the same. You're losing your company because of me. Rosie, Logan, for the first time in years, Noah was happy, stable, making progress, and now we have to start all over again because of my past. It doesn't have to be this way. Yes, it does. She wiped her eyes. It's time to accept that some people can't escape what they did, or what was done to them. So you're just giving up? Like that? I'm protecting the people I love. That includes you. Logan felt his heart break. Rosie, I love you. She closed her eyes. I know, and that's why I'm leaving. And she shut the door in his face. 3 days after Rosie announced she was leaving, a black van pulled up in front of her house in Pilsen. 2 federal agents stepped out and knocked on the door. Miss Monroe? Said the taller agent, showing his ID. Agent Davis, FBI. This is Agent Chen. We need to speak with you. Rosie was holding Noah's hand, their bags already stacked in the hallway behind her. About what? Meridian Global. You've been called to testify in a federal investigation. Investigation? May we come in? Agent Chen asked. Rosie hesitated, then opened the door. Noah hid behind her, nervous around the uniforms. Mom, who are they? The boy whispered. They're police, sweetheart, but we haven't done anything wrong. Agent Davis placed a folder on the kitchen table. Ms. Monroe, 6 months ago we opened an investigation into corruption schemes tied to international contracts. Your name came up as the original whistleblower back in 2018. My report was ignored. It was. But the information you gave back then started a separate investigation that's taken years to build. Rosie slowly sat down. What did you find? Agent Chen opened the folder. Meridian Global was laundering money for Mexican cartels, Russian oligarchs, and corrupt politicians through fake contracts, just like you reported. And they fired me and ruined my life to silence me. That's right. But now we have enough evidence to move forward, and we need your testimony. When? Tomorrow. Northern District Federal Court, Illinois. The hearing will be broadcast live. Rosie felt a chill run through her. Live? It's a case of national interest. It involves high-level politicians and powerful business people. Transparency is key. What if I refuse? This is a formal subpoena. You don't have a choice. That night, Rosie called Logan. He answered on the first ring. Rosie, where are you? I've been looking for you for 3 days. Logan, listen, tomorrow I'm testifying in federal court about Meridian. What? The investigation was reopened. They want my testimony about the corruption scheme. That's great. They're finally going to prove you were right. It'll be live, Logan, nationwide, including in Chicago. So what? Your company's going to be in the spotlight again. Your suspension might turn into a permanent dismissal. Rosie, this could clear your name, or it could destroy whatever's left of my life. Where are you now? In a hotel near the courthouse. The FBI arranged protection. I can come. No, your presence would only complicate things. Rosie, I have to go. Noah needs to sleep. The next morning, Rosie sat in a witness room at the Dirksen Federal Building in Chicago. She wore a simple dark suit that Agent Chen had provided. Nervous? Chen asked. Terrified. Just tell the truth. Your evidence is solid. What evidence? You said everything was destroyed. Chen smiled. Not everything. She placed a box on the table. We found this in your old apartment in Washington. The landlord kept it after you moved out. Rosie opened the box. Inside were flash drives, printed documents, CDs with recordings, everything she'd gathered about Meridian. How? You hid copies in the attic. The landlord found them during a renovation and kept them, thinking you'd come back. Rosie felt her eyes fill with tears. I had forgotten all about this. Well, now this evidence will be the foundation for taking down the biggest corruption operation of the decade. At 10 a.m., Rosie was called into court. The room was packed with journalists, lawyers, and curious onlookers. TV cameras followed her every move. Miss Monroe, the federal prosecutor began, did you work for Meridian Global between 2015 and 2018? Yes. And what was your role? Senior translator and interpreter for international negotiations. During that time, did you have access to confidential documents? Yes. It was part of my job. And what did you find in those documents? Rosie took a deep breath. I discovered that Meridian was facilitating illegal money transfers through fraudulent contracts. Shell companies were set up in tax havens to launder money from criminal sources. Can you be more specific? In March 2018, I translated a contract between Meridian and a company called Baltic Ventures. The contract involved the purchase of industrial equipment for $50 million. But when I checked, Baltic Ventures didn't exist. The address was just a P.O. box in the Cayman Islands. What did you do with this information? I looked into other contracts. I found a pattern. Dozens of shell companies, all using the same scheme. And then, I reported it internally. I went to my supervisor, David Kellerman. What was his reaction? He told me I was seeing things that weren't there, that I should focus on my work and stop asking questions. But you persisted? Yes. I gathered evidence, documents, meeting recordings, emails, everything proving that Meridian knew about and was actively involved in these schemes. And what happened when you presented this evidence? I was fired for professional incompetence. My access was revoked, my reputation destroyed, and I was threatened into silence. Threatened how? Anonymous calls saying something might happen to me if I kept spreading lies. Strange cars parked on my street. One day I came home to find my apartment ransacked. Miss Monroe, do you have any evidence of these threats? I do. Rosie pulled a flash drive from the box. I recorded some of the calls, took photos of the suspicious cars, documented everything. The prosecutor plugged the drive into a laptop. A threatening voice filled the courtroom. You should stop making up stories, Rosie. People who make too much noise sometimes disappear. A murmur rippled through the room. Miss Monroe, why did you keep this evidence for so long? Because I knew the truth would come out someday, and because I wanted to protect others who might be going through the same thing. Even after your career was destroyed? Especially because of that. At home, Logan watched it all on TV, his heart in his throat. Rosie stood strong, brave, finally being heard. And today, the prosecutor continued, do you still maintain that Meridian Global was involved in money laundering? I don't maintain it, I prove it. Rosie held up another flash drive. This drive contains emails between Meridian executives discussing how to split the profits from these schemes, including conversations about silencing me permanently. The prosecutor smiled. "Thank you, Ms. Monroe. No further questions." When Rosie left the courthouse 3 hours later, a crowd of reporters was waiting. She said nothing, just got into an FBI car. But Logan had seen it all. And for the first time in weeks, he smiled. Rosie Monroe had been vindicated. Now it was time to bring her home. Rosie's testimony shook the entire country like an earthquake, and her story made headlines in every major newspaper. On Thursday morning, Logan was at home watching the news when his TV switched to a Meridian Global press conference. Meridian Global publicly acknowledges that serious mistakes were made in the case of Miss Rosie Monroe, said the company's interim CEO, reading from a prepared statement. "We offer our formal apologies to Miss Monroe for the way she was treated and for the impact our actions had on her life and career." Logan nearly dropped his coffee. They were publicly apologizing. Furthermore, the executive continued, Meridian is establishing a compensation fund for the damages caused to Miss Monroe and implementing new policies to protect whistleblowers in the future. Logan's phone rang. It was Richard Hayes. "Logan, did you see the press conference?" "I did. You need to come back." "What do you mean?" "The board met last night. Your suspension has been lifted. We want you back as CEO immediately." Logan gave a wry smile. "Interesting how quickly you changed your minds." "Logan, the company lost $3 million in canceled contracts last week. Clients want to know if we still support Monroe. We need you to manage the situation." "And Rosie? About that? Maybe we acted too hastily." "Hastily? If she wants to come back, we can reconsider." "How generous of you." "Logan, be pragmatic. The woman's become a national hero. Having her at the company now would be advantageous." Logan hung up on him. An hour later, he was knocking on the door of the hotel where Rosie was staying with Noah. A federal agent answered. "Mr. Griffin, Miss Monroe is expecting you." Logan walked into the suite and found Rosie out on the balcony, looking over Lake Michigan. She was wearing jeans and a simple blouse, but something about her felt different. More confident. Stronger. "Hi," he said. "Hi. I saw you were reinstated." "How did you find out?" "It's all over the news. Chicago CEO back in charge after employee cleared of wrongdoing. And you, how are you feeling?" Rosie turned to face him. "Strange. For years I dreamed of this moment, of finally being believed, of clearing my name, but now that it's happened, I don't know what to do. For so long my life was all about hiding, about staying safe, and now I don't have to hide anymore. That's freeing. And terrifying." Logan stepped closer. "Rosie, I have a proposal." "Logan, just hear me out. I want to offer you the position of Director of International Relations at Griffin Imports." Rosie blinked. "Director? $200,000 a year, full benefits, top-tier health plan for you and Noah, flexible hours, and full freedom to build your own team." "Logan, I can't." "Why not?" "Because people will say it's favoritism, that you're promoting me because of whatever this is between us." "And what if I am?" "Logan, I'm kidding. The truth is, you're the most qualified person for the job. You speak 6 languages, you have international experience, and you've proven your integrity under extreme pressure. Any company would be lucky to have you." Rosie studied him. "And Noah? We have daycare in the building. Teachers trained to work with kids who have special needs. He can stay there when needed, or you can work from home whenever you want." "You've thought of everything." "I have. And one more thing. This offer has nothing to do with my personal feelings for you." "Your personal feelings? I love you, Rosie. That hasn't changed. But this offer is professional. You deserve this opportunity, no matter what's going on between us." Rosie was quiet for a long moment. "If I accept, how are we going to deal with us?" "However you want. I want to keep work and personal life completely separate." "Agreed. No kissing at work." Logan smiled. "Not even on the cheek? Especially not on the cheek. And outside of work?" "Outside of work, we'll see how things go." "So you accept?" Rosie took a deep breath. "I accept, but I want a clear contract laying out everything we just discussed." "Of course. And I want to start slow. No pressure, no expectations." "Perfect. And if it doesn't work out, if it gets too complicated, I leave. No drama." "Understood." Rosie held out her hand. Then we have a deal, Mr. Griffin. Logan shook her hand formally. We have a deal, Director Monroe. The following Monday, Rosie started her first day as Director of International Relations. Logan had set up an office for her on the 30th floor, with a lake view and all the tools she might need. Your first meeting is at 10, said Mariana, handing her the schedule. German clients interested in import contracts. Perfect, said Rosie, getting her materials in order. The meeting was a complete success. The German clients were impressed by Rosie's fluency in their language and her grasp of international trade laws. She's outstanding, one of them told Logan after the meeting. I know, Logan replied, proud. Throughout the week, Rosie proved herself again and again. She closed deals that had been stalled for months, solved complex international disputes, and wowed every client she met. On Friday, Logan knocked on her door. Come in, she said, without looking up from her papers. How was your first week? Good. Challenging, but good. I have another proposal. Logan, professional, strictly professional. What is it? The International Trade Conference is in 2 weeks, in Paris. It's the biggest event in the field. I want you to come with me as our lead interpreter. Rosie finally looked up. Paris? 3 days. 5-star hotel. All the major players will be there. It's a great chance to position Griffin as a leader in the global market. And what exactly would I be doing? Translating, interpreting, helping with negotiations. You'd be my official business partner at the event. Business partner. Exactly. Nothing more, nothing less. Rosie smiled. When do we leave? Seriously? You're in? It's work, isn't it? And you said it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It really is. Then I'm in. But Logan? Yes? If you try to kiss me in Paris, I'll throw you off the Eiffel Tower. Logan laughed. Noted. But as she went back to her work, he couldn't stop smiling. Paris with Rosie. Even if it was strictly professional, it was still a beginning. And sometimes the best beginnings were the ones you least expected. The George Futh Hotel in Paris was exactly what Logan had promised. Luxurious, elegant, and with a spectacular view of the Eiffel Tower. Rosie stayed in a room on the 10th floor, while Logan was 2 floors above, something he insisted on for the sake of professionalism. On the first morning of the conference, they met in the lobby at 7 a.m. Rosie wore a flawless gray suit and carried a leather briefcase Logan hadn't seen before. New briefcase? He asked, trying not to stare at how beautiful she looked. Noah gave it to me, she said with a smile. He said a director needed a director's briefcase. He's absolutely right. The Paris Convention Center was buzzing with activity. Business people from all over the world filled the halls, closing deals and forming partnerships. Logan and Rosie headed straight to the Griffin Imports booth. Nervous? Logan asked. A little. It's been a while since I've done something this big. You're going to be amazing. And she was. That morning alone, Rosie translated simultaneously for Japanese clients, negotiated in Mandarin with a Chinese delegation, and resolved a contract issue with French businessmen, all before lunch. How does she switch between languages so quickly? The Japanese company rep asked Logan. She's remarkable, Logan replied, watching Rosie explain technical details in fluent Japanese. At lunch, they sat at a cafe near the convention center. Are you enjoying yourself? Logan asked. More than I expected. I forgot how good it feels to use all my skills. And how does it feel to be back in Paris? Different. Last time I was here, I was running away. Now I'm living. There's a difference? All the difference in the world. They talked about work, the conference, and the clients. But Logan noticed the small moments, when Rosie laughed at his jokes, when their eyes lingered a bit longer, when she leaned in without realizing it. That afternoon, there was a panel on the future of international trade, and Logan had been invited to speak. Rosie sat in the audience, quietly translating for a few international clients. At Griffin Imports, Logan said into the microphone, "We believe the future of trade isn't just about products. It's about human relationships. And we've been lucky enough to find someone who understands that better than anyone I've ever met." His eyes found Rosie in the crowd. Our Director of International Relations has shown that integrity and competence can go hand in hand. Sometimes the most qualified person is the one you least expect. Rosie blushed, but stayed professional. On the second day, things were more relaxed. Between meetings, Logan and Rosie walked the streets of Paris, visited an old bookstore she'd been wanting to see, and had coffee at a charming bistro near the Seine. Can I ask you something? Logan said as he watched Rosie flip through a French book. Of course. Have you ever thought about forgiving? Forgiving who? Me. For that disastrous kiss. Rosie looked up from the book. I forgave you a long time ago. Really? Logan, you've acted like a gentleman ever since. You respected my boundaries, gave me space, offered opportunities without pressure. Of course I forgave you. What about Noah's father? Have you been able to forgive him? Rosie closed the book. That one's harder. Not because of what he did to me, but because of what he did to Noah. Abandoning a child, I'm still learning how to forgive that. He has no idea what he lost. No, he really doesn't. That night, there was a closing gala for the conference at the hotel. Logan wore a tuxedo and Rosie wore a navy blue dress, elegant but understated. You look, Logan paused, searching for the right word. Different. Stunning. Thank you. But remember, we're coworkers tonight. Coworkers who dance? Coworkers who dance professionally. The orchestra played soft jazz as Logan offered his hand. May I have this dance, Director Monroe? You may, Mr. Griffin. They danced as if they had done it 100 times. Logan was a strong lead, and Rosie followed with ease. Other couples watched, commenting on how perfect they looked together. Do you remember the first time we met? Logan asked as they turned. I remember you yelling about Basque documents, and you showing up out of nowhere to save me. Out of nowhere? I was cleaning the room. You know what I mean. I do, and I remember you doubting I could translate. My biggest mistake, one of many. Hey, Logan pretended to be offended. I'm kidding, you've come a long way. What do you mean, come a long way? You stopped yelling in meetings. You stopped slamming papers on the table. You stopped treating employees like subordinates. When did I realize I was doing that? When you started seeing me as a person, not just as help. They danced in silence for a few moments. Rosie? Yes, thank you. For what? For making me a better person. She looked into his eyes. You were already a good man, Logan. You were just hiding behind the CEO title. And you helped me find the real Logan again. Maybe we helped each other. The music shifted to something slower, more intimate. Other couples drew closer, but Logan kept a respectful distance. Can I make a confession? He asked. Depends on the confession. That first slap you gave me, I deserved it, completely deserved it. But it taught me something important. What? That you weren't just another employee. You were someone who deserved respect. Someone special. Logan, let me finish. These months working with you have been the best of my life. Not just romantically, but professionally, personally. You challenge me, inspire me, make me want to be better. You're being a bit intense for a dance between colleagues. Maybe because I don't want to be just your colleague anymore. The music ended, but they remained on the dance floor, gazing at each other. Logan, I know, wrong place, wrong time, but I can't keep pretending what I feel for you is only professional. Rosie took a deep breath. And what do you feel for me? Love. Real love. The kind that changes everything. Before she could answer, the gala's master of ceremonies stepped onto the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, to close out this wonderful evening, we'd like to invite Mr. Logan Griffin of Griffin Imports for some final remarks. Logan looked at Rosie, surprised. I didn't know I was supposed to speak. Go, she said, giving him a gentle push. Show them why Griffin Imports is the best. Logan walked nervously to the stage. More than 300 people were in the audience. CEOs, diplomats, journalists. He found Rosie in the crowd. She was smiling at him, encouragingly. Good evening, he began. When I came to this conference, I thought I was here to talk about business, contracts, profits, international expansion. The room quieted. But in the past 3 days, I've learned something far more important than any deal. I've learned about courage. He found Rosie's eyes again. A few months ago, I met someone who taught me that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing the right thing, even when you're scared. It's standing by your principles when the whole world is against you. It's starting over after losing everything. Murmurs swept through the audience. This person taught me that true success isn't measured in dollars, but in integrity. That leadership isn't about power, but about service. That love, real love, is built on mutual admiration, respect, and partnership. Logan stepped off the stage and walked toward Rosie. Rosie Monroe, he said into the microphone, stopping in front of her. You've changed my life, You've made me a better person, a better leader, a better man." The room fell completely silent. Rosie stood frozen, tears welling in her eyes. "I love you," Logan said, still speaking into the mic. "I love your intelligence, your strength, your compassion. I love how fiercely you protect Noah, how you fight for what's right, how you never give up." He knelt right there, in the middle of the gala, in front of 300 people. "Rosie Monroe, will you marry me?" For 3 seconds, there was complete silence. Then Rosie began laughing and crying at the same time. "You're completely crazy," she said. "Is that a yes? We need to talk about this privately." "But is it a yes?" Rosie looked at him kneeling there, at the hundreds of people watching, at the journalists' cameras. "Ask me again in 10 minutes when we're not being broadcast to half the world." Logan stood up, laughing. "Fair enough." He kissed her hand gallantly as the audience erupted in applause. 6 months after the Paris proposal, Chicago woke to a crystal-clear blue sky. It was June 15th, and the rooftop of Griffin Imports had been transformed into a sky garden for the wedding of Logan Griffin and Rosie Monroe. Rosie was on the 40th floor, getting ready in a room Logan had turned to a temporary dressing suite. She wore a simple yet elegant white satin gown that highlighted her natural beauty without any excess. "Mom, you look beautiful," said Noah, adjusting the tie on his little tuxedo. At 8 years old, he had grown, and his coordination was improving every day thanks to the new therapies Logan had insisted on supporting. "Thank you, sweetheart. And you look handsome too. Ready to be my ring bearer?" "Ready. I practiced walking slowly with the rings 15 times yesterday." Rosie smiled as she gently smoothed her son's hair. Life had changed completely for them. Noah was now studying at the Chicago International Academy, a school for gifted children and those with special needs. He spoke 3 languages, played the piano, and was developing a real passion for math. "Mrs. Monroe?" A soft voice called from the door. It was Mariana, now promoted to executive vice president of the company. "Is it time?" "In 5 minutes. But there are a few people here who'd like to speak with you first." Rosie raised her eyebrows. "Who?" "Former colleagues from Meridian Global." Rosie stiffened. "They weren't invited." "I know, but they specifically asked to see you today. They said it was important." After a brief pause, Rosie nodded. "All right. Just 5 minutes." 3 people stepped into the room. David Kellerman, her former supervisor, Sarah Chen, a former translation colleague, and Michael Rodriguez, who had been director of operations. "Rosie," David began, clearly uneasy. "Thank you for seeing us." "What do you want?" "First, to say we're sorry," Sarah said, her eyes already filled with tears. "We knew you were right about the corruption. We all did. But we were too afraid to stand with you. Afraid of losing our jobs," Michael added. "Afraid of being tied to a scandal. We were cowards." David took a step closer. "Rosie, when you were fired, I could have stood up for you. I should have, but I chose to protect my own career instead of doing what was right. And because of that," Sarah said, "we want you to know that we gave full testimony in your federal investigation. We turned over every document we still had. And today," Michael pulled an envelope from his pocket, "Meridian has agreed to pay you an additional $2 million in compensation for the personal and professional damage you suffered." Rosie took the envelope, stunned. $2 million? "It was the least we could do," David said. "We know money can't undo what happened, but we hope it shows we recognize the harm we caused." Rosie looked at the 3 of them, then at Noah, who was watching everything with interest. "I accept your apologies," she said at last. "We all make mistakes when we're scared. What matters is having the courage to make things right." Sarah gave Rosie a gentle hug, careful not to wrinkle her dress. "You were always the bravest of us all." After the former colleagues left, Mariana returned. "All right, it's time." The elevator took Rosie and Noah to the rooftop. When the doors opened, Rosie caught her breath. The top of the building was completely transformed. Hanging gardens created a magical setting, with white and gold flowers everywhere. A small orchestra played classical music, and about 100 guests were seated in elegant chairs arranged in a semicircle. But Rosie only had eyes for Logan. He was waiting at the altar, dressed in a flawless tuxedo, wearing a smile that lit up his whole face. Next to him stood Richard Hayes as best man, one of many reconciliations that had happened in recent months. Noah walked ahead, carrying the reins with the focus of an astronaut. Guests smiled at how serious and determined he looked. Then Rosie began to walk. Each step brought her not just closer to Logan, but toward a life she had never dared to imagine. Among the guests, she saw familiar faces. Griffin clients who had become friends, Noah's therapists, neighbors from Pilsen who had become like family. And in the front row, smiling with pride, was Carmen Santos, Noah's teacher, now like a grandmother to him. Dear friends, the officiant began as Rosie reached the altar. We are here to celebrate not just the union of Logan and Rosie, but the transformative power of true love. Logan took Rosie's hands, looking directly into her eyes. Rosie Monroe, he said, his voice steady, you came into my life like a quiet storm. You changed everything. You showed me that real strength doesn't come from status or money, but from character. You taught me that true love is built on mutual respect, admiration, and partnership. His voice caught slightly. I promise to love Noah as my own. I promise to be your partner in all of life's adventures. And I promise never to underestimate a cleaning lady again. The guests laughed warmly. Logan Griffin, Rosie said, tears in her eyes. You taught me that not all powerful men abuse their power, that some people use their wealth to do good, that it's possible to trust again. She glanced at Noah, then back at Logan. I promise to be your partner in business and in life. I promise to challenge you when needed and support you always. And I promise to translate all your international meetings for the rest of our lives. Even the boring ones? Logan asked, teasing. Especially the boring ones. They exchanged rings while Noah clapped excitedly. When the officiant said, You may kiss the bride, Logan gently held Rosie's face and kissed her like it was the first time. The celebration went on late into the night. Logan and Rosie shared their first dance as husband and wife while Noah watched, beaming with happiness. Can I tell you something? Logan said as he spun Rosie to the music. Of course. Remember the day you slapped me? Which one? There were a few. The first one, after dinner. I remember. That's when I knew I was in love with you. Really? Why? Because you were the first person who treated me like a regular man, not a CEO. You put me in my place without caring about the consequences. And that attracted you? It fascinated me. Later, when the party was winding down and the guests had started to leave, Logan and Rosie were alone on the terrace, looking out over the city lights of Chicago. Can I say something? Rosie asked, nestled in Logan's arms. Always. Remember that social project we talked about? For women in vulnerable situations? The mentorship and job training program? That's the one. I want it to be our first official project as a couple. Really? I want to help women who are where I used to be. Women who are invisible, silenced, who just need a chance to show what they're capable of. Logan kissed her forehead. We'll start on Monday. Monday? Why wait? Rosie laughed. I love your enthusiasm, and I love everything about you. They stayed quiet for a while, watching the city. Logan, yes, thank you. For what? For seeing me, truly seeing me, not as a cleaning lady, not as a victim, not as some charity case, just me. Logan pulled her closer. Rosie Griffin, he said, trying out her new name, you're the most extraordinary person I've ever met, and now you're my wife. Senora Griffin, she said with a smile. I like how that sounds. So do I. As they finally turned to go inside, Rosie paused and looked out once more at the view of Chicago. You know what's funny? She said. What? 2 years ago, I was cleaning this building every day. I used to look up at this terrace and wonder what the view must be like. I never imagined that one day I'd be standing here as the owner of the place. You were always the owner, Rosie. It just took me a little while to be smart enough to see it. She turned to him, eyes filled with joyful tears. Logan Griffin, I never needed your pity, just your respect, and now your love. You have all of that, forever. And they kissed there, high above Chicago, with the whole city as their witness that happy endings really do exist. Especially for those brave enough to fight for them. What did you think of Rosie and Logan's story? Share your thoughts in the comments. Rate this story from 0 to 10. What's your score? Subscribe to the channel and click the bell to follow all our stories. And check out more touching stories by clicking here on the end screen.